There is a part of you that only comes out in silence. The anger you hide, the envy you deny, the hunger you pretend not to feel. Ancient Greek wisdom would not call this weakness, it would call it a message. Most people spend their lives trying to become acceptable, more calm, more likable, more controlled. But the ancient Greeks warned that the self you bury does not disappear. It waits beneath the surface. That hidden part often appears through the people who disturb you most. The arrogant one, the jealous one, the one who says what you were taught never to say. Sometimes, your strongest reaction is not judgment, it is recognition. The Greeks carved one warning above the temple of Apollo at Delphi: know thyself. Not the version you perform for the world, the version that appears when nobody is watching. Carl Jung gave this hidden self a name: the shadow. But long before psychology named it, Greek tragedy showed it. Heroes were not destroyed by monsters alone. They were destroyed by the truth they refused to face. Achilles could defeat armies, but not his own rage. Alcibiades could win admiration, but never escape his hunger for validation. The Greeks understood something modern people often forget: the unmastered self always collects a price. The Greeks did not place their monsters outside the city. They buried them beneath it, deep in the labyrinth, where nobody wanted to look, because the real danger was never the beast alone. It was what created it. Your shadow does not appear first as violence. It appears as attraction, obsession, jealousy, the strange pull toward people who awaken emotions you cannot explain. What seduces you often reveals you. This is why the person you judge most may become your greatest teacher, not because they are innocent, but because your reaction exposes a buried truth. The shadow always points toward unfinished self-knowledge. The most dangerous shadow is not anger. It is the life you secretly wanted, but convinced yourself you did not deserve. Buried ambition can turn into bitterness without you ever noticing. Envy is not always proof that you are small. Sometimes it is evidence that something inside you still wants to grow. The ancient Greeks feared envy, but they also understood desire can become a compass. The shadow grows strongest in the places where you perform the hardest. The perfect employee, the perfect partner, the perfect friend. Every mask earns approval, but slowly starves the real self beneath it. This is why some people feel strangely empty after achieving everything they once wanted. Because success built on performance can never satisfy the parts of you that were abandoned to achieve it. The Greeks believed every person carried an inner contradiction: reason against desire, discipline against temptation, civilization against chaos. Wisdom was never the destruction of one side, but learning how to hold both. To know yourself is not to become pure, it is to become honest, to admit the hunger, the resentment, the fear, the longing, and finally, ask what each one has been trying to protect. Because beneath many shadows, there is pain. The child who learned silence was safer than truth. The person who buried their real self just to be accepted. Some masks were never vanity, they were survival. But what protected you once can imprison you later. The silence, the charm, the perfection, the control. At first, they helped you survive. Eventually, they kept you from being seen. So the shadow is not asking you to become darker. It is asking you to become whole, not to obey every impulse, but to understand why that impulse appeared in the first place. When Achilles finally saw what rage had cost him, he became more than a warrior. When Odysseus saw what pride had cost him, he became more than clever. The wound became the teacher. Your shame may point to tenderness you were taught to hide. Your anger may point to boundaries you never learned to defend. Your envy may point to a dream you abandoned too early. The problem was never that these feelings existed. The problem was that nobody taught you how to read them. Every hidden emotion is a doorway. Walk through it carefully, and you may find the self you left behind. This is the turning point. Stop asking, how do I get rid of this? Start asking, what is this trying to show me? The shadow loses power when it becomes a question instead of a secret. Because the moment you become honest about your shadow, something unexpected happens. You stop fearing other people's darkness so much. Compassion replaces obsession. Understanding replaces performance. Now comes the part most people never reach. Your shadow is not just where your pain lives, it is also where your power has been waiting. Not the fake power of control, but the quiet strength of becoming whole. The Greeks believed every person carried both Apollo and Dionysus within them, order and chaos, logic and desire. A meaningful life was never built by destroying one side, but by learning when each one should speak. This is why the people who truly know themselves often appear calmer, not because they are free of darkness, but because they are no longer running from it. The war inside them has finally become a conversation. Your anger may become courage, your envy may become direction, your fear may become humility. Nothing inside you is wasted when it is understood. Even the parts you were ashamed of can become tools of wisdom. The goal was never perfection. The Greeks knew perfection belongs to statues, not human beings. Real wisdom begins the moment you stop hiding from your own contradictions. And perhaps this is the greatest power of all, when you no longer need to pretend, when your ambition becomes honest, your love becomes honest, your pain becomes honest, because truth gives the soul a strange kind of freedom. The ancient Greeks warned that the greatest danger was not the monster in the labyrinth, but the person who refuses to enter it, because the part you hide most deeply may be the very part that contains your greatest power. This is the Agora test. Tonight, write down the name of one person who triggers you, not the person you dislike most, the person who disturbs you in a way you cannot easily explain. Then ask, what part of them might already live in me? There is a version of you hiding beneath the performance, beneath the fear, beneath the mask. And maybe the life you want begins the moment you stop running from that person. Subscribe to Timeless Mind by Nicolaus. Join the journey.
The lesson is ancient. The choice is yours.